All right, we're back. We are COMP308. That's Emerging Technologies in the Winter 2019 semester at Centennial, or week 3, part 1 of our broadcast. And we're going to talk about assignment 1 briefly, and then we're going to stop recording and then come back and record some more stuff. Okay. So this way you can concentrate on what I'm looking for assignment 1. I'm in the process, I would like to say, of updating it. It needs a bit of an update. I was looking at it today, and I'm like, yeah, this kind of sucks. So I want to make it so it's a little bit more interesting for you guys. There's going to be a few more things I'm looking for, but let's talk about it. So assignment 1, when I talk about assignment 1, I also have to talk about what is our schedule officially. So let's talk about our official schedule, because it wouldn't be fair for me to tell you, to drop it on you last minute. And let's see if I can get to there. So when we look at our plan for this week, where we are right now, come on, there you go. When we look at our plan, then if I scroll down, there's a couple things to note. One thing is that originally that there was 6 assignments that was scheduled. I don't agree that there should be 6 assignments. I think it's a lot for you guys. And also the weighting is really low. Like, so if you actually look and see what these assignments look like, it's like 5 and 8%. This one's 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first 2 assignments and combine them into one that's worth 15%. Okay, so it'll be less evaluations, but I think it's more valuable in that they will something that we can build on. All right, because now there's advantages and disadvantages to my thinking. I'm just being honest because I don't want you guys to be angry or freak out or whatever. So the advantage is that there's less evaluations. I'm going to try and cut these down, but they're each going to be slightly more weighty. That means if you mess up, then you mess up bigger. If you do well better, right? There's more points to value worthwhile. On the plus side, what ends up happening is that you can use this stuff to build upon. So example, like assignment 1 and 2 is just like developing web apps with Express. Okay, cool, but what web app, right? And then using MongoDB to store and access it from Express applications is another assignment. I'm kind of combining this into one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that you have a portfolio site that you're going to make with Express. So if you already have a portfolio site, and some of you already do, fantastic. That means a lot of the content you can like literally port over. I'm not expecting you to make absolutely everything new or anything. However, it could be a good exercise because you're going to make a standard 5-page site, kind of. And unfortunately, most smaller clients, that's what they ask for. They ask for products, services, about me, contact me, some kind of homepage, and as well as some other content, custom content. But if you have these like 5, I say, kind of major things, it's kind of like a business card online for a lot of clients where they have, some basic information about what they do and so on. So you're going to do it for yourself. You're the client, and you're going to create kind of a little portfolio all about you, right? So let's make it fun. You're going to be using EJS templating for this one, this first project. Later on, we're going to be able to modify it to add a front end, something like Angular or React, depending on what you want to do. You'll have options to do one or the other, or Vue. If you want to use Vue.js or something else, it's up to you. We'll be focusing more on Angular in this course, but there's nothing wrong with looking at some other framework, whatever framework you prefer. First part you're going to make is like these 5 pages. So home page, an about me page, projects page, service page, contact page. And there's going to be some basic requirements. I'm working on this right now. It's kind of in flux. All right, so please forgive me. But I want a navigation bar or some other kind of navigation scheme. There must be something to move from one page to the other. Okay, I'll leave that to you. I want to keep it as high level as I can because you can be creative and make some really interesting ways of moving from one place to the other. Some kind of custom logo. Guys, I don't expect you guys to be artists in any way or capacity. I mean, you can simply use some kind of, like I said here, some kind of primitive color-filled shape, like, I don't know, a triangle or hexagon that includes your initials. I mean, it can be that simple and dumb, right? So if you have artistic capability, obviously you want to make something that represents you, but something that's very simple, that's not, just your name, would be nice. Something that you can think about. If you have an artist or a person that can make it for you, that's fantastic. And if you already have something, reuse it, okay? Each of these things is worth content marks. So there are going to be a bit of content marks. I know it's a kind of outside the scope of what we're doing in terms of emerging tech, but this is something that you can reuse later on. Okay, so I want to give you credit for it. If you're going to add stuff and if you're going to create stuff that you've never done, not giving you credit for it is like a waste of your hours, right? And I want to make sure that you use your hours effectively. Homepage should also include some kind of welcome message that says, hey, welcome to my page, or here's my mission statement. I love to code apps. A really simple stuff, or I really love, doing this kind of thing. And it should be positive, kind of a positive statement that you give. So when someone visits your site, they're excited to kind of connect with you, right? Keep it simple again and clean. Okay. So nothing crazy, no memes. All right. I don't want any memes on the site, on the page. Don't make it look like a page from the 1990s. All right. It's got to have some proper CSS. I'm just saying, right? Some proper CSS and formatting. You could use Bootstrap for this. I recommend Bootstrap or some other thing to start off with. If you're really good and you don't want to use Bootstrap, but you want to make your own custom CSS, I'm okay with that too, right? The About Me page should include your name, legal name, an image of you. I recommend head and shoulder shot, right? Almost like they can look at. This is some kind of image. It could be kind of a cool thing to look at, maybe black and white, but it's got to be you. Please don't give me an avatar or something like that. In real life, maybe you may not want to include this kind of stuff, but this is for an assignment, so it's actually, for me, it's like, hey, this is you. It's not somebody else that made this site. It's not your friend, cousin, sisters, brother's uncle that made this. Is you, right? Again, make sure it's like simple and clean, and there's no issues with it, because it might be viewed by somebody else. An About Me page should also include a link or PDF version of your resume, right? You could also, instead of I would also accept a shortened version on the actual page itself. So some kind of highlights of things you've accomplished or whatever. You can make this as creative as you want, okay? But it's got to be formatted properly and appealing, okay? So I don't want anything to look like really ugly or basic. If it does, you'll lose marks from a content perspective. Projects page should include at least 3 projects that you wish to highlight. Anything from the past, something you're working on, something you want to work on even. I would even accept that. Future projects, something like that. That really gives interest to, kind of shows the user or the person who's viewing your site, what are you working on? What do you love to do? Are you a gamer? Have you worked on games in the past? Are you a, front-end developer and you've done these really cool sites for this, for a restaurant or something? I don't know, whatever you want to show off, put that there. Even if it's a school project that you're proud of, put it there. And it's got to be images and text around that. So things like, here's the current project. Here's an image representing the project. Here's some small paragraph text of what your role was. I was the project manager. I was the coder. I was whatever. Small information. 2 marks, content. Services page, short list of things you can do. Are you a programmer? Are you good with CSS? Some people did like these little bar charts that kind of said like, I'm really, really good with CSS. I'm kind of okay with HTML, but I'm really awesome with C++. And you kind of put something in there that kind of shows what your skills are, right? In fact, if anything, this portfolio site is like an extended resume of stuff about you. So if you ever want to go to an interview, say, look, I got this really cool portfolio site. I made it on the web. It looks good. It's responsive, right? So that means it'll work on any device and those kind of things. This is it. And I built it with Node.js, and I was with the full, mean stack or merge stack, whatever you want to do it. And this is a proof that I did it. That's the kind of stuff that you want to do. Contact page should include some kind of contact information about you, all right? I don't recommend putting your email address in there. Spam is bad, right? If you're going to do it, put a garbage email address that people can, like a spam email address that, or general email box that they can connect with you. But more often than not, even for your customers, you want to give them some kind of contact page, like a short form, a web form they can enter. That's going to be basically sending information to you, right? Initially, this page doesn't have to work at all and just redirects them back to the home page when they're done, okay? So because some of you may not know how to make, most of you actually may not know how to make that interactable, right? In terms of once you submit something, it's going to send you information about who wants to connect with you. There's going to be a later assignment where we do this. We connect with, kind of on the back end, we can add other things, users, a private area for your site if you want to have contact list or something. We'll figure that out as we go. But for now, this contact page should be visible, it should be responsive, and it should be laid out properly, but not necessarily fully functional. Just saying, no time. I want you to use Express and Node, all right? for this one. So there's no requirement for a front end at this point, right? So Express the Node alone, you can do a lot with just Express the Node and Bootstrap. So all I'm looking for is like you're using Express the Node, so that way, and at least a couple of templates, maybe one for your home page and one for your Contact Me page. There should be slightly different because of the content that's going to be there. Again, you're going to use routing. So this is where this is in flux. I might reword this a little bit that says, you want to use routing that's on the back end. So back end routing, not front end routing for this one. As in that you don't have any front end. You don't have a front end framework that you're using, just Express and maybe EJS. Your site will use the new structure created by the Express generator. I recommend the Express generator just to scaffold out your project quickly for now. You could write it by yourself if you want, as long as you kind of adhere to the structure that I'm going to show you today, right? But what I'm looking for is your files and folder structure should be organized, all right? So it's not going to be like, here's my server.js file, and then here's all my files all in one big folder. That doesn't make any sense, and it's really unmaintainable by other people, right? JavaScript, CSS, all multimedia file assets should be in your public folder, which I'll show you today. And then you are going to define routes for all your site pages in the index.js file in your routes folder, and you might have other subfolders that you use for any specific routes. We'll talk about how to do that later on today. Views will contain all your EJS page templates that you'll be using. And I also want you to split your views into several parts. I want a header, some kind of content view, and a footer view, because you're going to be creating almost like a single page application where you inject your content in the page. All your code, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, whatever, is all error-free. Okay, so there's no errors on your page. Internal documentation, I want to see, and again, this will be a little bit changed, your name, your student ID, some information about you, which I'm going to include here. Please look to the document when I'm done. I'm going to be done by the end of the day. You'll have a complete list of everything I'm looking for. And then some things I'll also remove that doesn't make any sense anymore, right? And GitHub is important. So version control, I want you to put everything on GitHub. I recommend GitHub. You could use Bitbucket if you really hate GitHub, really like a lot. As long as I can get access to your repo, I'm going to be happy. And your site must be fully hosted live somewhere, whether it's Heroku, Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google Platform, whatever. It's up to you, right? And there's a lot of free options that you don't have to pay anything for. I don't expect you to pay any money for this or buy a custom domain, although it's recommended. Why not? If you can buy your own custom domain name and say, I don't know, my name is Tom Smith, go to tomsmith.com, kind of thing, right? Then good, all power to you, right? But I'm not gonna tell you have to pay for it or go do domain stuff. It's kind of out of scope, but it's nice to have. So optional site features: use Angular for a front end framework. I'm not expecting you to do it, but if you do, I'll give you a bonus. It's going to be a small bonus because we're going to keep working on Angular throughout the entire time. Make your contact form work somehow. Figure it out, right? If you can do that, another 4-point bonus. It's not that difficult. And create an external document, and we can talk about this. If you're planning to create an external document for your web design, like that's fine. I like style guides, like what they do, color palettes, all that kind of stuff. If you want to go into that, if you have time, that's fantastic. I think it's good to have wireframes and planning and all that stuff. I'm not making you do it. It's just I'm putting it out there because I think it's an important thing in real life if you're going to make a website. Now, this is not a web course. I got to repeat that. It's an emerging technology course. But we need some kind of platform, a basis to build on. And I'm going to use this assignment 1 to build on throughout the entire course. Okay, so it's important that you get this done. You'll also be tested on the technologies we're using in this assignment in your first test, which is coming up week 7. Okay, so things that we do in here, I may ask you similar things to be done in your first test. Okay, nothing too crazy. Again, if you know how to do this stuff, then your first test will be easy. You'll have full access to the web and code and whatever. But if you don't know what you're doing, then not even God can help you in the time you have. I'm just telling you, like, it's just the way it's going to be, right? So please do your own work. This is an individual assignment. It's not a group assignment. And start early. You have 3 weeks. It sounds like a long time, maybe. It's not a long time. People, please please do not wait until week 5 or week 6 to start this thing, right? Like it's due week 6 and I'm starting it on Monday and I'm going to send it on Saturday. That'd be a mistake. I'm just telling you. All right. There's just too much stuff to do. And you have a chance to shoot this by me a couple times before then. So do it. Like next week, I'm going to ask some specific things that I want you to do for me. One thing I'd like you to have for next week ready before this thing is even due. I want to see a logo, some basic thing next week, right? And I want to see your image, some kind of picture, head and shoulders. Your buddy can take it in front of a whiteboard. Simple as that. It'd be nice to have a professional shot if you're serious. However, I'm not going to require you to spend any money for this assignment. Okay, so if you don't have that, and if your buddies take some really good pictures of you, they can pose you against a white background or something that's interesting. Make sure that you're happy in the shot, that you don't look like terrible or really unhappy or super tired or sick, because maybe someone's going to look at this. You never know, right? And again, it's good practice for you because if you pose yourself, maybe one day you'll be able to pose somebody else. All right, submitting your work. You're going to include a zip archive of your project web files. Now, the reason why I'm asking you for this is as a backup to your GitHub. All right. Sometimes what happens is I get a student's link to their GitHub and it's empty. That'd be very, very bad for me to mark. Right. So I get this and I'm like, there's nothing for me to mark. It's a 0, right? But if you give me an archive of your website stuff, you'll lose marks for GitHub, but you'll still get some marks for your project files. A live link to your portfolio site somewhere online, hosted by Heroku, Microsoft Azure, maybe something local that you like. And I recommend things like, there's just tons of them out there, right? That you can use that basically give you some kind of cloud space somewhere that run and support Node.js on the back end. Okay, so it doesn't matter where you do it, as long as it's live. If I can go to your site from anywhere in the world, I'm good, right? Performance doesn't have to be great. If there's a bit of lag, if you get a free VM or something like that, and it's a little slow, but it works, I'm happy. It's okay. As long as I can see it and it functions properly, it's responsive, those are good things. Ryan, is that a hand? All right, tell me. Yeah, we're going to go over that as we get closer, right? So not next week, but probably the week after, we'll probably point to that. However, Heroku is probably one of the cheapest and best, easiest to connect with. It's free. It's kind of something that's easier to do, and it's more reliable in some ways than connecting with Azure. Being a student and connecting to Azure is kind of iffy. Sometimes every semester is different. Like you have free access to Azure for a year, I think. And sometimes it's just free credits for a year. And sometimes it's only 6 months. And sometimes like every time they change, it's called the Microsoft Imagine package that you get as a student. And I can imagine that it's always changing, right? So it's been called a lot of different things over the years. And unfortunately for us inside here, sometimes it's even blocked. Some parts of it are blocked inside the campus, right? So I love it. I think Microsoft makes a good package. It's a really good interface, but it's also a little slow. Some complexity now. It's much more complex than it used to be when it first kicked off. Whereas Heroku is like super easy to kind of access. You can create a site in like minutes, and it's free. If you want a paid-for site that you want to work with clients on, DigitalOcean in Toronto is a pretty good alternative. They're pretty cheap, $5 a month, and you get like a droplet, which is equivalent to a VM that's local, and you're supporting local business, which is pretty cool. Okay. Questions around assignment 1 or concerns?
What's the official week?
Week 6. So that'll be February.
End of week 16.
Yeah. That's Saturday, February 16th at midnight, right? So lots of time, I think, maybe, right? It looks like it's big, and it's not that big if you start working on it. And we're going to scaffold some of it out today, right? So I'm going to give you some code. If the stuff I give you, if you want to use my code, I'm perfectly fine as a start to start going with it. But it needs more customization and grooming than the stuff I'm going to show you. You need more time making it look nice, giving your colors, all that kind of stuff. Please don't use just black and white and a very bland background. Add images. It's a visual medium. Make sure it's appropriate. And again, keep your language simple, right? I like to say simple is the right word. Okay, no memes. Yeah.
You said there's a bonus for using AngularJS. So like
Yeah.
we replace Express.js with Angular.
Well, you could. There's a bunch of ways to do that. One you could do is you could use Express for routing on the back end, and instead of using a view engine, you can basically pump out something like a JSON data that can be consumed by Angular as in a service, as an example. Or if you want to use a React front end, you would replace it almost completely. So the back end is just Express and Node, just from navigation routing perspective, and the front end and connecting to the database. And the front end is really your view that's consuming the data. There's many ways to balance that, and we'll talk about that. Lots of different approaches. Some of them are better than others and less complex. And I'm for simplicity, right? Because if it's too complex, I always think about this. There's actually an old framework, just because you said that, and I know I digress a little bit, but there used to be an old framework that was really popular called Sails. It was a full stack framework, right? And they made the analogy that you raise the sails and then it's all up, right? Let me tell you this, raising the sails in this framework was like really hard. It was like they had all kinds of little checks and balances. It was almost like a framework of its own to raise the framework that was Angular. And so I don't recommend it be that complex for you. You should be able to maintain it easily, whatever it is, update it for the next assignment and those kind of things. If it's so complex that updating it or maintaining it is going to take too long, then I'm going to recommend against it. Yes. Can you use CSS grid? Is that what you said? I mean, I'm okay with it. Again, the only thing I would not allow is theming. So please don't download stuff from some theme forest or whatever. I'm not going to allow that. I want it to be your own. Like, don't grab somebody else's portfolio theme and then slap it onto yours. That's just really cheesy, in my opinion, right? So, and people have asked weird questions before. Like, I'm just gonna kind of say it. Please don't think about making a Wix site, WordPress. This is not that kind of course, all right? This is a course we're making use of and practicing using full stack. I'm just saying it, right? And don't get mad when I say it, right? Because people are like, well, why do I have to work so hard on this? It's a portfolio site. I can make it with WordPress in 2 minutes. Yes, you can. That's not the exercise. The exercise is practice. This is practice for you, associating content. Remember that there's the 3 pillars, of web development that I always try and stress, which is, your structure and your content first. If you don't have good structure, HTML and content, your website is useless. Truly. I mean, no content, why am I going there, right? Second thing is your presentation, your appeal of the website. CSS, you're maybe using a CSS framework like Bootstrap is okay, or Foundation, or some other kind of grid-based CSS framework is okay. It's up to you how you do it, right? But it's got to be your own, all right? Like how you manipulate it. And then finally, your behavior, which is going to be your JavaScript front-end framework, back-end framework, MongoDB, all that stuff that we're doing this semester. All right, so that's what I'm looking for. Any other questions? Again, I think this is a great exercise for you guys. Some people have taken it to the next level. I've seen in past iterations of this course where they've actually got a portfolio website that's working well. Some examples of them, again, if you really want to push yourself, other people are taking things like COMP308, which is the advanced graphics course here. If you're taking both courses, sometimes there's some complementary stuff you can do. Like, for example, use some WebGL to make your site look really awesome, right, on the front end. Again, the fancier you make it, the more time it's going to take. I don't want this thing to take that many hours. Like, hours invested in this thing, this is worth 15% of your grade. I always look at it like this. If you can get 1 hour for 1%, you're good, all right? Max. If you go beyond 15 hours on this thing, you've spent too much time on this thing, all right? I'm just saying. All right, so please don't spend 50 hours or 100 hours on this thing because that's what you're like. Remember that you have other things to prioritize, not just my stuff. So there's a site called the Awards site. It's not a bad thing to look at once in a while, especially for inspiration. I think is a nice place. They do a lot of things like rating, some interesting sites that have been designed. You can always search for things like portfolio. So if I go like portfolio, you might have some really cool portfolio ideas. I'm just randomly picking stuff, so please forgive me. They rank it. There's a committee that kind of ranks the portfolio itself, and you can see some of the designs that people are doing in terms of loading and everything else. Some of it is more challenging to do than the others. Like, for example, this is more of an artistic site. You can see that there's interactivity with this thing. Some interesting but weird stuff. I'm just scrolling here and it's taking me like this way. That's weird. Some part of it I like. It's neat because it gives you some interactive. It's different, from a web design perspective. When I move my mouse, it's a little bit crazy. But it has lots and lots of animations and everything else. It looks really cool, right? There's some really cool parts about it. Some parts bug me. I don't like my mouse and things being controlled for me, but that's just me, right? So, but otherwise, you see what she's basically saying, that she's got some really cool awards and stuff. And these sites are great, like I said, inspiration, places where they use JavaScript, they use the HTML5 canvas, WebGL, all their stuff, animations, all kinds of other stuff that they put into it to make it so that it's really awesome looking. So take a look at that. That's just some kind of inspiration for you guys. There's lots of other places out there. Even ThemeForest, if you're really crazy, can show you some basic themes. Just don't download them and use them. Make your own. That's similar. All right. That's really all I want to say for the assignment. One thing to note is where we are today, and then I'll move on. I'll stop recording and we'll go into the lesson for today. So again, we're modifying assignment number 1 and 2 to include one bigger assignment that's 15%, that I think will give you a little bit more meat to work with. All right. So we're here. We're going to build some Express applications today. Next week, we're going to talk about MongoDB and NoSQL. And then the week after, we're getting into authentication. It's funny that in week 4, we're supposed to do full CRUD with Mongo and Express. That's very challenging to do in 1 week, only because of the level of detail that we can go into. It can be done, and I've done it before many times. We have 4 hours, which is a good thing, which allows us good continuity, so we don't have to start, stop too much. But it's a lot when we do 4 hours, at once and get all CRUD operations done. Today, you're going to notice that there's going to be still stuff left to do for next week for Express, right? Because Express could be a couple weeks as well, right? Again, I'd like to reiterate that this is not necessarily only a web course, but emerging technologies, which we're going to explore other things. Managing user authentication is going to require OAuth and more stuff with MongoDB. And we're going to use Mongoose for that. And we're going to start and finish Angular somehow over a course of 2 or 1.5 weeks. Week 6 is going to be Angular part 1. And week 7 is going to be mean with Angular part 2. And it's only half a week because you also have your test the same day. So for the test, the way we're going to do it is I'm not going to make you, as an example, do the lesson first and then wait for your test to come up. It's going to be test first, and then I'm going to cut you off, and then there's going to be lesson. And the reason for that is because guaranteed, if you're going to do a test 2 hours from now, you're not going to listen to a darn thing I say during my lesson, right? Because you're going to be so more worried about your test than anything else. There won't be anything to worry about necessarily. It's just, it's not going to be a multiple choice true false type of test. It'll be a practical test where you build something based on the stuff we've been doing in class, exercises, as well as your assignment. All right. Then in the second half, we get into microservices and stuff. And this is where, again, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there's assignment 3 and 4, and they both cover microservices in one way or the other. Again, I may kind of make one bigger assignment, that's assignment 3 and 4 into one, because it'll cover microservices. Both of these cover microservices. So not sure why I would want to break it up like this. It just gives you more evaluation stuff to work with, and they're 1 week apart, like a little 1 week assignment, which I think is I'm not sure what you can accomplish in a week, right, in terms of doing a microservice. So we'll see how it goes. I will talk with Professor Ilya and Professor Alir as well, because they're also doing stuff on this part, just to make sure we're aligned. Then we're into AI, neural networks, deep learning, all that stuff. That will be probably a couple of assignments in there. So I'd like to reserve the assignment spaces, like actual evaluations, for those parts, where I can make smaller little pieces here, because it's going to be hard to incorporate your machine learning language stuff, or machine learning stuff with, see my mind, it's like I'm thinking about the Spider-Verse. I know, it's terrible. with your current assignment that we're going to be working on now, right? So that's where we're at. And then there's going to be a final project. Again, I'm not going to give you the final project, before probably week 8. I think you'll get into small groups and be able to do, kind of make something with the whole framework. By this point, you would have already done your assignment number 1. You've already have some experience on your own, an individual assignment where you're working with Express, Node, Mongo, at least probably a little bit if you have a chance, some Angular. So you've already done that work, and then now you're working with in groups after that, right? So you got some individual, you're going to do your test individually, and then the rest is pretty much group work for the second part. And the reason for this is it can be very challenging, and there's going to be a lot of competing assignments out there, right? Like 6 other courses for some of you or more. And we're going to make it as easy as we can. I might make it groups of 2 or 3, like pair programming. We'll see how it goes. Again, I'm going to try and align with the other professors on this one. Okay, any questions around the assignment changes? So I know the outline says one thing, and I'm doing slightly other things, but it's really all around your evaluation, not your the content. The content's going to remain, yes. You came in late? Yeah, okay. Multi-page, we'll watch the video. All right, anything else for anybody else? Okay, that's it. Let's stop recording this one, and we'll get into the meat and bones of things.